So in today's Insta lecture session, we'll be talking about CNS tumors, central nervous system tumors. I have received a request to cover this topic, CNS tumors, and today will be the first lecture on the CNS tumors. I will start the discussion with medulloblastoma, the most common pediatric brain cancer we see. Now, before I start going to discuss about the medulloblastoma, I need to tell you few basic concepts about the CNS tumors. CNS tumors have their uniqueness, their distinctiveness, and they basically have three unique features which separate them from the other tumors originating from the other organs. And those three features are: firstly, they don't have any pre-malignant stage or in situ stage, unlike the tumors in other organs. For example, while reading about cervical carcinoma, uterine cervical carcinoma, I've definitely read that cervical carcinoma in situ stage is there. That kind of in situ stage is not seen in the brain tumors. Second characteristic feature of the brain tumors, that malignant brain tumors do not metastasize, which is quite unique, because malignant tumors, their hallmark feature is metastasis. So any malignant tumor we see in other organs, they obviously metastasize. But malignant brain tumors, they typically do not metastasize. And the third unique point of the brain tumors or the CNS tumors is this, that the location dictates the outcome or the manifestation of the CNS or the brain tumors. What does it mean? It means that suppose there is a small brain tumor is there near in the medulla, which is near to the cardiorespiratory center. Now, suppose there is a meningioma there. Meningioma is a benign mostly tumor and it's a small size. But despite being small, despite being a benign tumor, it can cause catastrophic outcome due to its location to a very vital center in the brain. So in the brain tumors, the key deciding factor for the outcome is the location. Location always matters for the brain tumors. So I told you that there are three key features about the brain tumor that you need to know before start to learn about the brain tumors. Firstly, they don't have any pre-invasive pre-malignant stage, in situ stage. Secondly, the malignant brain tumors do not metastasize. And thirdly, which I told you, that in the brain tumors, the location is very important and deciding factor to dictate their manifestation or outcome. Now, like any other organ, the brain tumors or the CNS tumor could be differentiated into primary tumors and the secondary or metastatic tumors. Primary tumors means that the tumors originate from the CNS or the brain and the spinal cord. Or metastatic tumors means that those tumors, they do not originate in the central nervous system, they come from outside. And a huge portion of the CNS tumors are actually metastatic tumors. We see metastatic tumors in the brain from the lung, like small cell carcinoma of the lung. The most common source of metastatic brain tumors we see in many studies. It could be from the breast carcinoma, it could be from the melanoma, it could be from the choriocarcinoma, it could be from the renal cell carcinoma, it could be from the other cancers of the GI tract. So a lot of cancers can metastasize to brain, and the common ones which I mentioned are lung cancer, breast cancer, melanoma, renal cell carcinoma, and carcinomas of the GI tract. These 5 things you need to keep in mind. They are the sources of metastasis or secondaries in the brain, notable and common sources. Now, coming to the primary tumors of the brain, today we'll be starting the discussion with the primary tumor of the brain, and that is medulloblastoma. Now, medulloblastoma is a pediatric brain tumor, and this is the most common pediatric brain cancer seen in children. This is a high-grade malignant tumor which is most commonly seen between the age of 5 to 9 years. And they're always seen less than 40 years of age. After 40 years of age, you should not make a diagnosis of medulloblastoma, because it is highly unlikely that it would be medulloblastoma. Now, medulloblastoma is a poorly differentiated tumor which has an exclusive site. Unlike many other brain tumors, they do not arise from many places. They have a particular predilection for a site from where they arise, and that site is cerebellum. And usually in the children, the medulloblastoma arises from the midline of the cerebellum. If they occur in adolescents or the adults, like any adult less than 40 years, you'll be seeing that they will be arising away from the midline of the cerebellum. But particularly in the children, in the typical age group of 5 to 9 years, which I mentioned, they arise in the from the midline of the cerebellum, which I mentioned. Now it's a high-grade aggressive brain tumors. At this point, I also like to mention that World Health Organization has categorized the brain tumors into grade 1 to grade 4, depending on their biologic behavior. Grade 1 acts nicely. They are usually a slow-growing, benign kind of tumor. On the other side, grade 4, WHO grade 4 CNS tumors are highly aggressive and highly malignant. And medulloblastoma is a WHO grade 4 high-grade malignant tumor. So if it is not treated promptly, obviously the outcome is fatal. Now, how the kids who have this medulloblastoma, they typically present with two features, either features of the raised intracranial pressure because a mass is growing in the brain, in the cerebellum, or secondly they can have some manifestation due to their origin, site of origin, cerebellum. So they can present with like features of the raised intracranial pressure, they can present with features of the nausea, vomiting, headache, morning headache, or they can have some cerebellum associated problems like gait ataxia. This kind of features could be seen. Certainly they develop a kind of gait abnormality. Their walking becomes abnormal compared to how they used to walk previously. This kind of features would be seen in the children. And at this point, I also like to mention that though medulloblastoma is the most common brain cancer or malignant brain tumor seen in children, but they are not the most common brain tumor in children. Most common brain tumor, primary brain tumor seen in children is pilocytic astrocytoma. And they also arise typically from the cerebellum. It acts as a differential diagnosis. But pilocytic astrocytoma, unlike medulloblastoma, is a WHO grade 1 tumor. That means they are benign and slow growing. But medulloblastoma, as I mentioned, it's a WHO grade 4 tumor. Now, the diagnosis of medulloblastoma is definitely can be made on MRI. Seeing a cerebellar midline mass is typically seen, and the confirmation is diagnosis is always made by histologic or histopathologic examination, and also looking for certain molecular changes. On histopathologic examination, what we see a typical appearance of a small blue round cell tumor, which cells have very high nucleocytoplasmic ratio. Cells are mostly made with nucleus, that's they look bluish, and they also show a characteristic feature known as Homer-Wright rosettes. We'll be talking about a lot of rosettes in the CNS tumor, and on this tumor, particularly in the medulloblastoma, the kind of rosette we see, that's called Homer-Wright rosette. To be more specifically, it is called Homer-Wright pseudo-rosette, because at the central portion of the rosette we see neuropil, that kind of structure. And the cells of the medulloblastoma usually could be elongated. Sometimes they show carrot-shaped nucleus could be seen. They show extensive necrosis, extensive mitosis, because it's a high-grade tumor. And the silver lining about this high-grade malignant tumor is this, that they are quite exquisitely radiosensitive. They are quite sensitive to the radiotherapy. So with radiotherapy and surgery, the survival rate for 5 years could be 75%. But if it is not treated promptly, the prognosis is quite poor about this tumor. And they are also, medulloblastoma could be associated with certain genetic syndrome, like nevoid basal cell carcinoma syndrome or Gorlin syndrome, or familial adenomatous polyposis syndrome, FAP syndrome. This kind of syndromes could be associated with medulloblastoma. So I am just highlighting the key points, the few key points that you need to know about medulloblastoma. This is the most common brain cancer, malignant brain tumor seen in children. This is the most common malignant pediatric tumor. But this is not the most common brain tumor seen in children, that is pilocytic astrocytoma. They exclusively arises from the cerebellum. Their most common age is 5 to 9 years of age, and usually seen less than 40 years, not after 40 years. And they usually present with the features of raised intracranial pressure and cerebellar ataxia, cerebellar gait kind of features. I will continue on the next session, the other tumors. Thank you.